What if the ending of 1923 wasn't just about Spencer and Alexandra's heartbreak? What if every silence, every look, and every word in the finale was a warning about something much bigger, something that hasn't even happened yet? A quiet storm is coming to the Dutton family, and the Madison may be the eye of it, but blink, and you'll miss the clue that ties it all together. The finale of 1923 felt like the moment before lightning strikes. We weren't given closure, we were given questions. Questions that don't just stay in 1923. They reach into the future. And to understand how this finale might be pointing straight toward something called the Madison, we first need to look at what the show really left behind in its final moments. Let's start with Spencer and Alexandra. Their story has been the emotional heart of 1923, a wild, romantic adventure that stretched across oceans and continents. But when the season ended, they were torn apart. Spencer is dragged away by British authorities, and Alexandra is left screaming in desperation as the ship sails on. At first, it seems like classic tragedy. But look closer. This isn't just about a love story falling apart. It's about a pattern. The Duttons are always being split by forces bigger than themselves: war, power, pride, land. The finale made that theme louder than ever. Spencer doesn't get to complete his mission to return home. He doesn't get to defend the ranch or stand beside his family. Instead, he's lost in the same way that his family is always losing something vital at the worst possible time. His journey is interrupted, but not ended, and that's important. Then there's Kara. Her final moments in the finale are haunting. She writes a letter to Spencer that's heavy with love but also warning. She knows darkness is coming. Her words are calm, but chilling. She speaks of the ranch, of duty, and of blood. But more than that, her voice sounds almost like she's talking beyond Spencer, like she's talking to someone else entirely. Someone not yet born. Could this letter be a message through time? It's here the clues start piling up. Kara talks about the land. She talks about sacrifice. And she talks about hope, even when the world is falling apart. These aren't just themes for one season. These are pillars of the Yellowstone universe. Every generation of the Dutton family faces the same fire. It's always different on the surface, but the struggle is the same. That means her words in 1923 might be echoing into stories that haven't even started yet. Now think about Tiana's storyline. On the surface, it feels separate from the ranch. She's a young Native American girl running from violence, pain, and erasure. But by the finale, her journey takes a spiritual turn. Her people speak of ancestors, spirits, survival. She doesn't just run away, she runs toward something ancient, something buried, something tied to the land itself. And that's no accident. Tiana's presence in the show may be more than just a subplot. Her journey might represent the old truth of the land before the Duttons ever claimed it. And that's where things get deep. Because if Tiana's bloodline carries forward, and if the Dutton line keeps surviving, what happens when those two stories finally cross again? What happens when two histories collide? We also can't ignore Banner Creighton. His story seems to stop too suddenly. He was once a major threat, full of fire and hate. But in the finale, his power fades. Is that the end of him? Or is there something more? It's possible that Banner's fall leaves behind a vacuum. One that gets filled later by something or someone we haven't met yet, maybe even connected to this so-called Madison. Here's the thing. 1923 doesn't wrap things up. It opens a door. And that door leads into darkness and, possibly, into the story of the Madison. Every character's fate is left hanging, but not randomly. Each one is like a broken piece of a much larger puzzle, scattered across time. By ending on so many unfinished notes. 1923 sends a clear message. This story isn't over. In fact, it may have only just begun. And that beginning might not come in the past, it might come later. Much later, maybe even in the future. In a timeline where the Madison plays a role no one saw coming. So here's the big question. What connects Spencer's heartbreak, Kara's letter, Tiana's spiritual path, and Banner's collapse? To a name we haven't even heard in the show yet. The answer might be buried in what wasn't seen, the silences. In the pauses. In the parts of history we haven't been told yet. Because 1923 didn't give us closure. It gave us clues. Let's talk about the name that's been floating in whispers, the Madison. It hasn't been said in 1923. It hasn't shown up in any obvious way. But that might be exactly the point. Because the strongest threads in the Yellowstone universe don't always announce themselves, they appear as shadows first, faint, quiet, and just out of reach, until the story catches up to them. So what is the Madison? Is it a person? A place? A code? A legacy? To begin answering that, we have to start with what the name feels like. The Madison has weight to it. The way it's said, the Madison suggests it's not just any name. It sounds formal, almost legendary, like the train station or the Dutton ranch. It feels important, like something people know about but don't talk about openly. That's where the theories begin. Some fans believe the Madison is a future Dutton descendant, maybe even a girl born into the bloodline that Spencer and Alexandra never got to raise together. If you think about it, the timing fits. If Spencer returns and eventually rebuilds his life, what if a child comes out of it? And what if that child years later has her own role to play? A woman who carries the burden of both her parents' pain and the legacy of the Dutton land. That child could grow up to become known only as the Madison. But here's where it gets interesting. Others think the Madison isn't a person at all but a place. Maybe a small, powerful piece of land. A secret part of Montana. Possibly a stretch of territory hidden or renamed tied to a treaty, a betrayal, or a long-lost promise. Some even believe the Madison is the name of the land that once belonged to Tiona's tribe. Land stolen, buried, and fought over, until it becomes central to a future conflict. That theory makes sense when you think about how 1923 blends personal pain with land ownership. For the Duttons, land is everything. And if the Madison represents land that was once sacred to native tribes and now becomes the center of a new battle, it would be the perfect storm. A collision between past sins and future debts. There's also a darker theory. Some say the Madison isn't land or blood, it's revenge. A person born of betrayal. Someone outside the Dutton family, but shaped by their actions. Think about all the enemies the Duttons have made across generations. What if someone who was cast aside, forgotten by history, comes back with a new name? A name no one connects at first, the Madison. It could even be the child of one of the characters who vanished from the story. A secret heir, a broken promise brought to life. A symbol of what happens when people are used and discarded by the Dutton machine. Then again, the most poetic theory. The Madison is all of the above. A name, a place, a story. A living echo of the choices made in 1923. Maybe the Madison is the thread that ties Spencer's regret, Kara's warning, Tiona's escape, and the broken power struggle together. It could be a mystery that haunts the next generation, something the family tries to bury, but can never escape. A missing link that explains why the Dutton family is always at war with itself. And maybe that's why it's not in the show yet. Maybe 1923 was never supposed to show us the Madison. It was only meant to lead us to it. Through silence, through loss, through fate. There's one more theory, a chilling one. What if the Madison isn't even real? What if it's a name spoken in myth, like a ghost story among ranchers and tribal elders? A name used to warn others. A name that means, this is where it all started to go wrong. In the world of Yellowstone, legends are often more dangerous than facts. What if the Madison is an idea, an event, something that changed the family forever, so painful it couldn't be mentioned again? Something coming. Or something already here. Because the Duttons don't just fight over cattle and fences, they fight over memory. Over truth. Over the past they can't change, and the future they don't understand. And if the Madison is tied to that fight, then it's no surprise that 1923 chose to whisper, not shout. The finale of 1923 didn't tell us what the Madison is. But it gave us enough pieces to start asking the right questions. The characters left behind scars, secrets, and loose ends, and those are exactly the kind of threads that the Madison may be pulling together. So now we ask, is the Madison already out there in the shadows of the Dutton timeline? Has it already touched the lives of the people we thought we knew? Or are we the first to even notice it? If 1923 gave us scattered pieces, then somewhere in the silence is the missing link, a thread that connects all the tension, all the heartbreak, and all the unfinished stories. And if the Madison is part of that thread, the big question becomes, how did the show quietly tell us about something it never named? To find the answer, we have to stop looking at what was said, and start looking at how it was said. The foreshadowing isn't loud, it's hidden. In faces. In objects. In names. In the way stories mirror each other across generations. Asterisk, let's start with symbolism. In the finale, Cara Dutton's voice is soft, but her words hit like thunder. She writes to Spencer with a kind of sadness that feels older than just one family. She says things like, "Hold on to the good, and our legacy will find a way." But here's the thing, at the moment she's writing it, there's no legacy in sight. The family is broken. The ranch is under threat. The next generation, unclear. So why does she speak as if someone or something is still coming? Asterisk, that's not just writing. That's prophecy. Asterisk, it's possible the writers crafted Cara's final words as a bridge, not a goodbye, a message for someone who hasn't even entered the story yet. Perhaps not Spencer. Perhaps not even anyone in 1923, but someone later. Someone tied to the Madison. Asterisk, even the structure of the finale hints at echoes. Spencer is pulled away at sea, literally separated from his future. Alexandra is left behind, heartbroken and alone, drifting toward an unknown fate. Meanwhile, Tiona is heading into sacred land, walking away from horror but toward more danger. These characters are being displaced just like pieces being shuffled before the next big move. And that displacement is key. Because the Yellowstone universe is obsessed with land and legacy. And yet, in 1923, all the land is in chaos. Borders are undefined. Fences are burned. Control is an illusion. It's almost like the show is setting up a reset, a point in history where something gets lost only to be found later. Asterisk, that something could be a person, it could be a deed, it could be the Madison. Now let's talk about names. In Yellowstone and its prequels, names are never just names, they're power. Think about how Dutton means something in Montana. Think about how Yellowstone isn't just a park, it's an empire. So what if the Madison is another name that carries hidden weight? A last name we haven't heard, but should've. Or even a first name that connects generations without us realizing. Asterisk. Some fans have pointed out that the Madison River runs through Montana. It's one of the 3 rivers that form the Missouri. Could the Madison be named after that river, tied to something sacred? Something fought over? Something buried? That's where Tiona's story becomes more important than we thought. When she escapes, she isn't just fleeing danger. She's retracing an old path, possibly a spiritual one. Her people talk about survival, about ancestors, about returning to the land, if that land includes the Madison River. Then suddenly, the show has drawn a silent line between Tiona's journey and something that might happen decades later. And maybe that's the point. The Madison could be the result of all these crossed paths. A spiritual return. A child born of 2 bloodlines that were never meant to mix but did anyway. A secret love. A forbidden union. A destiny carried silently through generations. Asterisk, in that theory, the Madison becomes a symbol. The proof that history doesn't just repeat bleeds. Asterisk, another clue. The show's visual style. Asterisk, in the finale, the lighting changes in very specific moments. Cara's letter is read over a dim, glowing horizon as if the sun is both rising and setting. Tiona's final scenes are washed in golden tones, earthy and sacred. Spencer's arrest happens under cold blue skies, gray and hopeless. These aren't random choices. They're emotional codes. Asterisk, warm tones equals legacy. Cold tones equals loss. Asterisk, so when you watch the finale again, notice how the camera lingers on empty spaces. The ranch with no riders. The cabin with no smoke. The path with no footsteps. These aren't just scenery shots, they're invitations. Empty spaces waiting to be filled by a future figure, a presence the show isn't ready to name yet. Maybe that presence is the Madison. And now let's consider what wasn't shown. Asterisk, Banner Creighton's downfall comes fast, too fast. A man who caused so much chaos just disappears. No final revenge, no death scene, just absence. That absence may be a setup. Maybe someone will rise from what Banner left behind. A child, a hidden relative. A vow of revenge passed down quietly. If that someone comes back years later with a new name, would make perfect sense. Asterisk, this theory isn't about guessing one plot twist. It's about understanding how 1923 is a map, not a message. And every broken character is a clue. The way Spencer never got to finish his journey. The way Tiona walked towards something sacred. The way Cara spoke to someone beyond her own time. Asterisk, they're not just telling us what happened. Asterisk, they're warning us about what's coming. Asterisk, so maybe the Madison is the child of 2 legacies, Dutton and tribal. Or maybe she's the revenge of a name erased from history. Or maybe she's a protector. A weapon. A missing piece. But whoever or whatever she is, the finale of 1923 planted her roots, even if it never spoke her name. And that's the art of good drama. It doesn't just tell a story, it leaves behind a trail and trusts you to follow it. Asterisk, let's step back for a moment, not from the story, but from the structure of the story. Because what makes 1923 so powerful isn't just what happens, it's what it means. The emotional weight, the themes buried under every line of dialogue, every choice made, and every silence held too long. And if the Madison is indeed the missing link, the key to this hidden legacy, then understanding her begins with understanding these deeper themes. Asterisk at its core. 1923 is about inheritance, not just of land, but of pain. Asterisk every character is carrying something they didn't ask for. Spencer carries the scars of war. Alexandra carries the burden of choosing love over safety. Kara carries the responsibility of keeping a broken family together. Tiona carries generations of trauma, and the land Montana itself carries the bones and blood of everything lost in the name of survival. Asterisk, that's the emotional engine behind 1923. And it's the same engine that could drive the Madison into existence. Asterisk because the Madison, whether person or place, feels like a response, a natural consequence, a result of everything left unresolved in 1923. If she's a character, she's the one who inherits all the pain the others couldn't fix. If she's a place, she's the ground where all those unresolved stories finally collide. Asterisk look at Tiona's final journey again. She's not just running, she's walking toward something. Her people are scattered, hurt, almost erased, and yet, she survives. That survival matters. Because in the language of the show, survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about keeping the story going. Keeping the truth alive until someone else can carry it. Asterisk that someone else might be the Madison. Asterisk, think about it, a descendant of Tiona, or someone who carries the memory of what her people lost, could become central to the Dutton legacy, not to continue it, but to confront it. And that confrontation wouldn't be loud or flashy. It would be personal, keyed and unavoidably emotional. Asterisk, that's how drama works. The biggest storms often come from the smallest, most human moments. Asterisk the same applies to Spencer's fate. His heartbreak at the end of 1923 wasn't just about lost love, it was about lost purpose. He was supposed to return home and save the ranch. That was the plan. But plans mean nothing in the world of the Duttons. Fate rewrites everything. Asterisk, so what happens if Spencer never gets that purpose back? What if he fades from history, but his child, his legacy, doesn't? What if the Madison is the result of everything he tried to protect, but couldn't? A daughter raised in the shadow of disappointment, a woman who grows up without knowing her father, but feeling the weight of his choices in every breath. Asterisk, she would carry both pride and bitterness, strength and silence. And she would walk into the world not just with a name, but with a mission. Asterisk, that's the emotional bridge. Asterisk, the show may not tell us who the Madison is, but it's already told us why she matters. Because every Dutton story is a loop. Every generation tries to escape the pain of the last, but ends up repeating it in new ways. Love turns into loss. Protection turns into violence. Tradition turns into chains. And somewhere in that cycle, someone has to break it. Asterisk, that's where the Madison fits. Asterisk, she could be the first character born from two histories, Dutton and Indigenous. Her existence alone would challenge the idea that legacy is something you inherit without question. She might see the ranch not as a prize but as a wound, and if she chooses to protect it, it wouldn't be out of tradition. It would be out of choice. And that choice could define the future of the Duttons in a way no one expected. Asterisk, there's also the theme of unspoken prophecy in 1923. Kara's letter sounds like a whisper to the future. She doesn't just talk to Spencer, she talks to fate. To whatever or whoever will come after them. That voice could live on in the Madison. As a character, she might never know her great-aunt Kara, but feel her words deep in her bones. Words about honor, sacrifice, and survival. Asterisk, because in the Dutton universe, the past never stays buried. It always finds a way to speak. Asterisk. Finally, let's talk about silence. In 1923, some of the most powerful scenes have no dialogue at all. Just music. Just faces. Just the land. Wide and empty. These moments are not fillers. They are loaded with meaning. They tell us what the characters can't say. And that's where the Madison lives right now in the silence. Asterisk, she's in the space between Kara's words. In the empty chair Spencer never sat in. In the wind that follows Tiona as she walks away from her past. She's in the future that hasn't been written, but has already been felt. And that's why she's so powerful. Because in storytelling, especially in the world of Yellowstone, the most important characters aren't always the ones we meet first. They're the ones we feel coming. The ones who are born from the choices made long before they arrive. Asterisk. And when she arrives, if she arrives, the Madison won't come to continue the Dutton legacy. Asterisk, she come to rewrite it. Asterisk. So now we've seen the threads, the heartbreak. In 1923, the silence in its final scenes, the echoes across bloodlines and time. We've followed the trail of symbols, legacies, and ghosts, and somewhere between Spencer's unfinished journey and Tiona's spiritual escape, something or someone is waiting in the shadows. The Madison. Not a side plot, not a background detail, but a symbol, a prophecy, a missing piece that might hold the future of the entire Dutton family in her hands. Asterisk, because, here's the truth, the Yellowstone universe isn't just telling a Western, it's telling a war between past and future. And 1923 might have been the moment that war quietly changed direction. Not with a gunshot, not with a final showdown, but with silence. With letters never answered. With children never raised. With truths never spoken aloud. And that's what makes this theory matter. If the Madison is real, whether she's a character, a place, or even an idea, she represents something new in this world. Not just another Dutton fighting for land, but someone who forces the story to ask deeper questions. Asterisk, what do we do with inherited pain? Asterisk, can bloodlines be broken and still heal? Asterisk, and what if the person meant to carry the legacy no longer wants it? Asterisk, those aren't just plot points. They're emotional landmines. And the Madison, as the quiet storm born from all the unresolved pain of 1923, may be the one who finally sets them off. Asterisk, and now, let's pull back even further. Asterisk, if this theory is true, if 1923 was never about resolution, but about planting the seed of something unspoken, then the show's ending wasn't an ending at all. It was a transition, a handoff, a soft turning of the page to a chapter that hasn't been published yet. Asterisk, and if that next chapter is titled The Madison, then here's what we might be in for. A world where the Dutton name doesn't mean power, but guilt. A new lead character, who doesn't wear a cowboy hat but carries just as much weight. Asterisk, a timeline where the sins of 1923 catch up to the present, not in courtrooms or shootouts, but in stories, in memories, in truth. Asterisk, that would be the most unexpected twist of all. More violence, but more reflection. Not louder drama, but deeper storytelling. A character who doesn't just fight for the ranch, but questions whether it ever should have been theirs in the first place. Asterisk, and that's where the Madison becomes truly dangerous. Asterisk, because she wouldn't just challenge the Dutton legacy, she might be the one who ends it. Asterisk, and maybe that's what Kara saw coming when she wrote her final words. Maybe that's what Spencer felt when he was torn from the boat. Maybe that's what Tiona sensed in the air as she returned to sacred ground. Asterisk, the storm wasn't over. Asterisk, it was just changing shape. So now we turn to you. Did you notice these clues in the 1923 finale before? Asterisk, could the Madison be the character the entire Yellowstone universe has been building toward without us realizing it? Asterisk, or do you think this is all misdirection, and the true future lies somewhere else entirely? Let us know what you think in the comments. Because whether the Madison is real or not, one thing is clear. Asterisk, 1923 didn't end with an answer. It ended with a riddle. And you've just started solving it. Asterisk.